I got a wonderful present today from my courier service. Chuck's blocks from Syren ship model company arrived today. And it took 15 days for them to arrive here. So it shows you the distance between when those of us who live far away from America and have to order things through a service called Skybox. 15 days is actually pretty good. Sometimes it takes as long as a month. So when we're doing something on a model and all of a sudden we need some critical piece, we're a month away from doing that thing. So a lot of foreplanning has to go in. And I have to say, I'm blown away, as I thought I would be, by the quality of the blocks. I ordered various sizes. The blocks that I'm probably going to use are 1/8, which here is a chart. And that chart converts through everything through 1/4-inch scale and gives you the real size of that would have been used on the actual ship itself. So depending on what scale you're in, that will tell you which block to order. I just thought I would throw this in to help you along. In the book, David suggests that we make up the bulkheads using 1/64 plywood. And I've got this birchwood plywood, which is really perfect. And I've stuck the template onto the plywood, and from that made up a series of pieces. The first time I tried it, I used rubber cement, and that's turned out to be not a very good idea because it tends to lift. And this plywood is so thin that it's very, very delicate, and you need to get nice clean lines. You need the paper template really stuck well to the plywood. So the second time I did it, I used watered down PVA, and it stuck perfectly. And then what I'm going to do is use some alcohol to take the paper and the glue off, and it should come off perfectly, leaving a nice clean surface from which I can start sticking the various parts. So the plan is to make up 2 sets of the partitions, cut them wherever I feel I'm going to cut them, put an insert of, in my case, mahogany, where we just want a recess on the door. And in the case of the lights or the windows, we're going to use some mica, which works so beautifully on the stern lights. So I'll have mica at one point and mahogany when I want a wooden recess. And I'll go through and show you how I make the mahogany strips. So what we're doing, again following the advice in the book from David, is we're making a sandwich. So you'll have, in this case, is the far right side, this piece cut out, cleaned up. In this case, we're going to put the mahogany on the back, and then we'll line up another piece. So we're making a sandwich, and the pieces should line up perfectly, and you'll get a total thickness of 0.073. So 0.73, about 3.5 inches, which is what is actually recommended in the book. In the case of the mica, it's going to be a little less than that because it's thinner. And that's 0.052, which is about 2.5 inches. Now we'll try to get this even thinner so I can have the thickness the same whether I'm using the mica or the mahogany. Some of you will remember that Kurt Van Dam did a wonderful presentation on tabletop safety. And one of the things he showed us was developing a little tool to help us cut very thin pieces on the table saw. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate now, because these thin pieces form a perfect background for the windows and doors that we're about to build. So we've got the saw set up, and this is the piece we're cutting it, and it's a little bit bigger than the height of the blade, so we're going to actually pass it through twice. And again, the technique is simply put the piece of wood that you want up close, tie it off, and now you simply push it through, and it's going to give you nice thin biscuits coming out this end. Now we repeat the same exercise. Take the fence, push it back up, tighten it back up, and cut another piece. Now sometimes they'll fall down inside, you'll just have to pick them up. And so here we have beautiful, perfect pieces, and we're going to finish these off first, and then put them behind the doors, which will make a nice contrast between the plywood and the door facing. So you might be able to just see the ridge that's caused by it going through the saw twice. So we'll just put it in the pre-arc and it's gone right back down and disappeared almost. Turn it in again. That's perfect. So again, we're just going to clean up the stock. And they'll be all the same and a little thinner. And that's about 3¼ inches. So it's taken it down a little bit, not as much as I would like to have had it, but that'll be fine. Now we're going to take the utility knife and cut out all of these openings. And it's going to take a lot of patience because it's very easy for it to slip and score the piece that we don't want any marks on. So again, I use a ruler, and just so that I get a nice clean line to start with, and I just take my time. Don't press too hard on the first cut, and the second cut we can come a little harder, and we just keep going through each of these until we get them all cut out. It took quite a while to get it done, but if you're starting to get frustrated, leave it alone, go away and come back, because it's so easy to screw up these pieces. Now, I've experimented a lot with these forward bulkheads, and you'll see lots of pieces which we'll get into. So the first challenge was really just to get the center piece in, and to do that I actually had to made about 4 pieces before I got it in, and this is the one that finally everything lined up. And you'll see on the riding bit standard there's a big space there, but that's really just part of the adjustment to get the piece to fit. The first thing I did was to look at mahogany at the back, and you can look at it here and see it really doesn't jump out at you. The two woods are not compatible, and in fact when you go and look at the 3D drawings, you'll see that the color of the deck material is the same color that they use to make up this bulkhead. And what they did with the recessed pieces inside, or the panel pieces, they were just covered in a dark gray paint. I tried that and didn't look good. So the next thing I experimented with was to look at doing everything in red like the rest of the boat. And I really liked how that looked. Matches the interior of the rest of the boat. And it's not inconceivable that in fact that's exactly what they would have done. Now remember, these are removable panels. In the case of the ship under some sort of action, this whole bulkhead would be removed and they would have easy access here. And I couldn't find anything that was really written in stone that defined the color of this. So this is what I decided to do. And this was my first real attempt. And you can actually see the problem. You'd see that, in fact, this panel is just too high for the height of the beams. Again, that's a cumulative error. Perhaps this whole deck came up a few inches higher than it was supposed to be, but clearly that could not work. So what I did is I went on the computer and shrunk this down slightly until I got a perfect match, and this is the match here. That fits perfectly. Now I'm going to make up this panel much in the same way as I described it earlier. I will use the mahogany. I will use the mica on the window and then paint the piece red, and that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to leave this to dry for about half an hour, and then I'll clean it up. But I did notice that some of the mahogany were not exactly the same thickness, and I don't want to have an issue when I make up the sandwich. So I'm going to put it through the thickness sander, just take a very slight amount off the back of it before I put the mica in. And then I'll decide whether I'm going to put another duplicate of the front panel in the back to mirror the same look and feel. To get the mullions in on the windows or lights, Greg shows a very interesting system where he takes the mullions and cuts the grooves on, in my case, I'm cutting them on the pre-arc, and these are then fitted into the frame so that you'll get them lining up perfectly. I'm going to follow that exact method. So these are the vertical ones, and they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just temporarily putting this here so you can see it. I've just placed the vertical ones, they're not spaced properly, and that's the challenge, that the spacing needs to be exact. So to do that, we have these pieces here, which fit on the side, and they define the spacing, because they don't always cooperate. So what that allows you to do is set up the spacing exactly. So when we put these in place, they'll go into these slots. And you'll get the exact spacing. Now to get this to fit, we have to take off a little piece at the end, which we'll do, and that'll bring it flat down against the glass, and then the center line will just go straight across each one of them. It's a good thing I tell you when I screw up so I don't mislead you. I should have installed the muntins before I installed the mahogany. And then once I installed the muntins, I should have then painted everything and then installed the mahogany, so that when I put the mica in, it is flush with the back of the piece. So now I'm having to come and chisel out some of the mahogany, and then the Proxon sander has come to our rescue again, the pen sander, because it can get into these tight spaces. And so I've been able to sand this back down flush with the main bulkhead, and it saved the day again. So now I can put the mica on, and I'm going to stick it on. Then I'll add the mahogany back on the individual windows, and then give it one last sand so that I get it real nice and flat before I put the backing piece on. And I'm going to stick this with, again, using some PVA glue. That's perfectly set. I'll just take off the extra glue on the side. Let's just get this sequence correct. First thing we do is we cut out the bulkhead, and then all the openings that we want recessed panels in. Then we install the muntins, clean up the front and the back to make sure it's flush on both sides. Then a suggestion is that we actually paint particularly the muntins before the mica goes in, and clean it up, because now I'm seeing some little hairs here and I'm going to have trouble cleaning up those hairs. Then we install the mahogany or whatever you're using at the back, and then sand that down so you get a nice flat finish, and be careful not to scratch the mica. And then you'll clean up to make sure you have a nice sandwich. So I made work a little hard for myself, but as my wife would say, you deserve that. Now I've made the back and I've cleaned it up. So what I'm going to do is, of course, the first thing I'm going to do is line it up. Make sure it lines up perfectly, which it does. But before I can stick this, I need to paint it. So let's see how this works out. And that's perfect. And then this is the first of the side of the bulkhead. That needs a little bit of adjustment. And here's the first of the doors. And this is not going to fit in here as yet. But I'm planning to have both doors open. In the case of Greg's boat, he has one door open and one door closed. But I'm going to have both doors open, and I'll put the hinges on both doors, showing them open, so you could see inside if you want to, and get a little idea about the cannons on the inside. I still have a fair amount of work to do. I have to make up the other doors, finish the corner piece on this side of the bulkhead. But you're starting to get a feel now for it. And I have to tell you, even though there was a lot of discussion about the color, whether it should be red or green, or someone even suggested perhaps white, I think the red really looks spot on. And, you know, this thing that red was only used at the back, I'm not sure where that comes from, but certainly the color coordination of the sides, the bow of the boat and the stern of the boat, I think the red facings on those bulkheads would be perfect. I am now in the finals of installing the bulkheads, and I've made up the main panel, and you'll see I've put the photo etch hinges on, the door handle on, which is a brass nail, and that fits on the model. And how we did that is we put some pins in each of the doors, put them in, lined up the holes very carefully, and then bent the doors, bent the pins, because I'm going to leave these doors open. And we'll just do a trial fit where that goes in and fits perfectly. The doors are open, so you'll be able to see inside, really working out exactly as I had planned it. Now we have to install the knees, and that hanging knee will actually form a support for the side of the bulkhead, so that'll be perfect. And now it's time to fit it in. So we're going to fit the wings in first. I am very happy with how the entire bulkhead has come out. I really think that I've gone to another level in terms of the detail. Lots of patience, and of course, lots of remaking things that just weren't perfect. I know that's not for everybody, but certainly for me, this ship modeling is a journey of which a lot of patience is required and persistence to make sure that we get it right. So we'll see you in the next video when we clean up the top and really start putting the planking, and we have this main beam, we have some work to do on it. So we'll see you, and I hope you always keep modeling.